Genta Automation, the first prompt-based RPA tool in the world. It works with you describing what you want in everyday words. It uses computer vision to automate things. Hello, Chris, the founder of Genta Automation.
Hey, Anders. How are you? Good to be here.
Nice
Hi,
to see
everyone.
you again, Chris. And to
Yeah.
you out there, a big welcome to all of you watching today. There will be a lot of demos, so stay tuned. Is the sound okay? Please let us know in the chat. And Chris, welcome. Maybe you can introduce yourself and the tool, Genta Automation.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm Chris. I'm the founder and CEO of Cognilo, and was the inventor of Genta Automation. So thanks for all coming, and glad to be here.
Thank you. Chris, I know you have a packed program for us, so we will switch to the presentation and then the demo will come. And a quick welcome to Jagidar, Ken, Stine, Thomas, Balram Singh, Jim, and Lucas in the chat. We will take all questions, so please just post them in the chat and I will give them to Chris after the presentation here. Chris, the stage is yours.
All right. Thanks, Anders. So welcome everyone again. I've got a short slide deck prepared. We'll also have a live demo of Genta to see how it works. So hopefully everyone can see this screen here. It's Genta Automation, world's first, I guess, what we're calling AI automation. So first, I'd like to just go over the kind of history of where we've kind of come from with software automation. In the 1990s, we started with screen scraping, where we've got with web-based applications, scraping of all the HTML, and then programmers would sift through to find the elements to action or extract from. Then we've got selectors in the 2010s, where RPA kind of started to gain more and more popularity, and again, kind of using the IDs of controls and paths to find where things are, to identify them and action them, like click them or entering into input boxes. Um, Now in 2023, Cognilo has come up with a new way to do this, which is using computer vision, and making it its kind of core functionality of its application. So what means is that we are using computer vision to train uh, the AI model on what a software application looks like. So we've taught it using tens of thousands of screenshots of computer screens, and helped to teach it where text boxes are, drop down lists, buttons, labels, save icons, and we're continuing to train it. So if there's like a like button or things like that, we're training it so that it can recognize, all kinds of things, even images that it could click on. Um, so how it works is basically that was the first step, which is we used computer vision to help teach it where the controls are. And the second step is we created a proprietary language we're calling GentaScript, which is a simple language that, as you can see there, to instruct Genta on how to action those controls that it found in step one. Okay, so like entering Contoso for company name, it will understand where the text box is for the field named company name. Okay, um, and it couldn't have been a better time for Genta to be released, because with ChatGPT out and all these great technologies that have been created, we were able to integrate uh, the technology from ChatGPT with Genta and GentaScript. And as new technologies come out, like right now, we've integrated with OpenAI, um, ChatGPT, and there's others, as you know, that are out, and we'll continue to add more integrations in the future. But this final integration with Chat has allowed us to create scripts automatically. So we can give it a prompt, and behind the scenes, what we've done is we trained ChatGPT on how to understand our language, how to understand GentaScript, similar to how we taught, or sorry, similar to how OpenAI the large language model ChatGPT has been trained and understands how to write JavaScript, for example, and code. So we've also taught it how to use our proprietary language, GentaScript. Okay. Because it uses computer vision, some benefits are it makes it more robust, because if a control changes, similar to if you've got Google Photos or Bing, and if it can identify faces or dogs and people immediately. So similar to how that works, if the screen changes, Genta at runtime will immediately detect where the control is. So if it got moved, the HTML, the DOM structure, or you know the path is changed, even with Windows applications. Uh, because it uses computer vision, it will find where it is, even if it's moved. Okay. Um, the GentaScript is quite easy to read. Navigate to, enter this as company name. So maintenance should be as well easier for regular users to be able to update quickly, um, and with less expertise needed. There's some advanced things that you could learn with GentaScript. We won't get into that here, but there is a pathway to, for developers to get to more advanced syntax and things like that, that you can make more use of the tool. Okay, so let's get started with the live demo. And I'm going to switch screens here. I'm going to go through these items, a simple example of data entry, and we'll take a look at what GentaScript looks like, uh, and Genta chat server. And at the end, we'll cover any questions and answers that anyone has. Okay.
Yeah, and while Chris find his other screen, please post your questions to what you see now to this awesome tool, and Chris will answer each one of you after this nice demo. Chris, the stage is yours again.
Okay. Thanks, Anders. So, all right. So I've got a site here, and this is just a fairly simple example. But let's say there's a web form that we need to input data into. It's got text boxes, radio buttons, checkbox, and a button, and a regular button. And we could tell it to prompt me for an Excel file and input this data, like this, right? So let's say we could have some data like this, but I'm going to show you something else that's quite interesting. With the integration with ChatGPT, we can also create files. Eventually, I'm sure ChatGPT will be able to also create files. Right now, you can't. But with Genta, we've made the ability to create files. So let's say you needed to input data, but you needed test data. That's a challenge for many developers, where they might need some test data. They don't want to use production data, or they just need to create some sort of information to input or things like that. So I'm going to create an Excel file, and I'm going to specify that I want these columns, and I'm going to say create 3 fake employees in this Excel file, and the employee ID. So I gave it some parameters too, and I told it, okay, send it back to me. This send it back to me just means it's going to create a button here. Okay, this is a kind of a special thing you can say, which will make it create a button. Okay, so I'll hit start.
And while
What is
this is generating the script here, Chris, maybe you can tell us what's going on. Is it really just your words that you're using here to create the automation?
Yep. So this is a brand new, prompt. You can, it could be an application it has never been trained on, like any application. So it's just simply the prompt, and what it's doing is in the background, it's creating the GentaScript, okay, using ChatGPT to create an Excel file. So as I mentioned, it'll create the button. So it's created the Excel file, and there it is. So I'm going to copy that so I can show you it for the next example. I'm going to paste it in here. But basically, it just created a dummy file. It created this information for me. I could even get creative and say, give me 5 employees based on spaceships or something. I've tried different things, or actors, and it can it creates, it can be creative. So I did that, and then next step is I'm going to tell it to. So this is really the automation. The first one was just something neat I wanted to show you, that you can create your own test data. But I'm going to tell it, prompt me for an Excel file, then go to this URL, which is the one I sent you. And then for each role, I'm going to, so this is a pretty simple English. It does require the user to kind of know that, you'll need to tell it to navigate to this website or go to this website, and then be specific. Being more specific is better with prompts. Same with ChatGPT, right? So when you're generating images with DALL-E or any type of prompting system, you want to be somewhat specific so it knows what you want to do. So I tell it, go to that website first. Then for each row, I'm going to enter, the emp ID column as identification number, login as login name. So pretty much just telling it to enter this information and enter the gender, click the value for the gender, etc. So let's run it. But it is a very simple prompt, and even if we have different variations of that, it still will work. If it doesn't, then you may have to reword it.
And Chris, while we work here again, I have a question for you.
Yes, sure.
So this is generated at runtime. Does that mean that it needs to do that each time I run, or is it that once I created this automation, I can just reuse it without taking the time to generate it here?
Yep, that's a good question. So um, you can save it so that you can just rerun it later. So if it's something that you do regularly, you can save it. The chat prompt area is, I'll show next, which is where you can save it. Okay, so there's a couple ways you can do it. Obviously, you can copy and paste this into Notepad and paste it every time, but you could also um, make it open in advanced mode. You can set that as the default view as well, and then you can have it listed on the left-hand side. So I'll show that in a minute, and then they'll be able to see how to do that. So I'm going to choose the Excel file that we just created, and then hit continue. So now it knows, we don't have to worry about variables or anything like that. You can see the prompt is there. If I did not, if the column names were the same as the field names, it'd be even simpler. I could just tell it enter the values from Excel into the fields in the web page or something like that, and it'll know to figure out that they're the same. It'll try to use the same names. Okay, but since they're different, that's why each field here I've specified, DOB as date of birth, etc. Yep, so that's it. So it's done 3. There's, other things that we can show, but let's go over here and let me know if anyone wants to see something different. But click on advanced mode. So we'll see kind of what it's doing, right? So it finished. The logs will also, these are optional, but it'll show the user a trail of what it's done. This was done on the same machine. It could have also been done on a separate machine, on a VM or a VM in the cloud or something like that. So it's remote and not taking over my computer. And so the logs would be a bit more helpful in that case. But the logs will pretty much just show you a history of what was done, so you can kind of inspect it if needed. Okay, and it has other logs in here, including the script and then a log file. If we hit advanced mode, so this is the this is the GentaScript that was created. Okay, so you can see it's pretty simple English, like prompt user is the command. If I typed prompt, then it'll give me the syntax as well. So if you needed to make some changes or add new commands, you can go into editor mode to make the changes. If you prefer this mode instead of the chat, you can go into your settings here and then change the default view that it starts with. Okay, so here it'll automatically create all the comments for us, so it can tell us what it's doing, and it already knows, you know, how to create the variables for Excel, so we don't even have to worry about that for the user. So the user, this could be abstracted from, and that's about it. So it creates this script in the background, and if I needed to, let's say, save it, I could copy it. So right now we don't have a way to, like, it'll be stored in this history, but if I wanted to, create a new, save it somewhere, I could right click new workflow and say, HR onboarding, um, HR onboarding process, and then I could paste it here. Okay. One other thing I wanted to show you was you can use the chat here as well. So let's say I didn't want to run these uh, prompts right away. I just want to build the script first and test it out. So you could tell it from here, go to Google and search tennis rackets. Then, so let's say if I did this, so you would kind of go to your Google or Bing, it doesn't matter, but you can kind of there search something. And then let's say I want to click racket guys. Right, so this is how you can kind of build it. And then I can say something else I can click on. There's also, for people who want to use selectors, we also still have the capture command here if we want to capture and use selectors. Okay, but I'll just tell it to click racket guys and then scroll down again. So we'll show you what it's going to build. So let's say I want to start with that. I'll copy that just in case I need it again to paste, but I'll hit create. And so what this is doing is pretty much the same thing, but instead of running it immediately, it's just going to create the script for me to kind of review and see what it's done. Okay, and you can do that with other things. So like looping through, creating a data table, looping through the data table, or so here it's created the website. It's going to the website. It's going to check for a prompt. We've kind of trained it a bit with Google to know that it needs a prompt. So in the background, it's been trained on the script and had a click and things like that. But this all looks good, so I can run it. So it'll scroll down, I think. But yeah, so that's kind of how you would create the script and review it, test it out, and continue to build. So I could build this in, and then there's some other things that you can do, like
And maybe I can
mhm.
interrupt you here, Chris, because
Yeah,
I
sure.
tried this and I was really impressed. Chris gave me access to this tool, and you can have too. There's a free community version. The link is right here below, so you can go try this awesome tool. And it was really great at handling like this cookie pop-ups, and I just typed in the prompt, Chris, that it needs to press reject all, and it could literally click everything just based on my words. So I was really impressed. I created a similar scenario like this. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, yep, yeah. It could be fun. I have fun too, like just creating some things and seeing how it kind of figures out what code to write. It can the examples that we've trained it on, like how to click and things. Um, they're quite straightforward. if you need to, for let's say seasoned or RPA developers that know, try catch type of blocks, if they wanted to, you can add that kind of syntax in here. So I do the exact same thing, but instead, so if you look here, it has click, but I want to put it, let's say, in a try catch block. So I put here, use try catch for clicking. So so it'll know that anytime it clicks, it'll put it into a try catch block. So you can like be creative and things to tell it what type of things you want it to do with the code. But that's about it. So that's how it works, and a simple example of how you can do, a GentaScript and automation using prompts. So there it knew to, it also put the log, and how to display the exception properly.
It looks extremely cool, Chris. We have a lot of questions to you
Okay.
out there. Chris will answer after this demo. Aussie Keel search, Balram Singh, time pass. There's a lot of questions. We'll make sure we answer everyone. So, Chris, that's a
Yes.
nice. It's a really nice piece of software here. I like the
Thank
simplicity,
you.
but I can also combine it with scripting, so I don't need to prompt each time. But it will definitely speed up the development time, I think.
Yep. Sounds good. Yep. So yeah, I guess let's do a time check here. It's 2:20 my time. We have what, 15, 20 more minutes. I don't know if there's something else they want to see, but
Yeah.
that was a simple example I had ready.
Yeah, that's great, Chris. I think we will take questions and comments, and then you might be able to show us a little bit more in the end. Is that okay with you, Chris?
Yeah, yep, sounds good. Yeah, we can start with the questions and
Cool.
answers. Yeah.
First of all, thanks to everyone for being so active in the chat. Love to see familiar faces from all around the world. If you enjoyed this stream, please give it a thumbs up. That will help both Genta and Alab Automation to get further out in the world. So yeah, thanks for all the thumbs ups. And let's start, Chris,
Mm-hmm.
with a question from Balram Singh. Balram asks Chris where the files will be generated, whether it's based on the argument or application default folder. I'm not sure what Balram means here. Can you? Where will the files be generated? Is it based on the argument or application default folder? Can we maybe he means that can we dynamically create the files, Chris, or is it always in the default folder?
Yeah, so when we create, so I'm thinking he means the when you prompt to create a file. So I'll explain both. So there's creating files, and then there's also the location of the actual scripts. So when we prompt to create a file, it's in, if we don't send it back to ourselves, it's stored. There's a path. So there's a Genta worker that's the one that actually performs the work. Okay, this can be installed on a VM, and then the desktop is the one that sends the request to the worker. So the worker, you can go general settings, and then under workflows, here are the path to the workflows, and then your assets. Okay, which are like your PDF files and things like that we want it to find. If I go here, when it creates those files, like through the prompt, like create the Excel file, it's stored in here, temp. Okay, so if you needed to find them physically, they're actually in here. So if I organize this, I should be able to find my Excel file. Okay, so that's where it stores it. But if you use the command, send back to me, or something, send the file back to me, then it'll create a button here for you. Or you can tell it, create an Excel file, C : / folder, whatever, so something like that, if you want to hard code a path. Okay. but this is the default.
Thank you,
And then for,
Chris.
yeah.
Balram Singh, please let us know if that answered your question. We will have the next question, Chris. Time Pass says, does Genta AI have conversation memory for the prompts?
Good question. So there's for this prompt, not yet. We are adding it. It's on the roadmap. We do have a chat here that does remember. So this one you can ask it questions. I didn't show this yet. I'll just show it really quickly. But if you get prompted for the login, we've provided user ID and password there that you can use. So here I could say, show me an example of if statement, right? And then this will remember what I asked it, right? So show me an example of an if statement using GentaScript, and then now show example, but not use Boolean value, right? So you can use this also to help with, with creating your scripts if you need to.
Great. Thank you, Chris, for the answer.
Yeah.
Time Pass, I hope that was answered. Please let us know in the chat here. Then we have Yasir. Can we get a flowchart of our automation?
Yes, it's here, diagram, but it's very basic right now. We spent more time on other aspects of the tool, but we will be investing more time into this so that it will be a more a better looking flowchart, and you'll be able to interact with it in the future. So we've already had the properties panel, but we'll be adding more to it so that you can drag and drop. Yep.
Thanks for the great question. Then Ozzy Keel got in a bit late. Hello, Ozzy. Nice to see you. Is this built on top of any specific engine?
Not on top of any existing engine. I mean, we built Genta from the ground up, but it does use some services. So, for example, I've mentioned already that it has integration with Azure OpenAI Builder, and also it uses services from Base64 and Azure Document Intelligence service to do PDF and image extraction. So if I have a website or a PDF file or an image that I need to extract from with the tool, you can simply just tell it, go to this website and extract from the page. And if there's a table on the page, it'll use those services to extract from it. So it has some services that are built in, but the GentaScript and the engine was built from the ground up.
Thank you, Chris. Then Dave, the RPA guy, says, oh, there's a community version. Yes, there's to everyone. You can try this tool yourself for free. I really hope that you will do, because it's awesome, and you can download it for free, play around with it, participate in the Cognilo or Genta Automation forum. There's also a link down here in the description. Chris, are you ready for some more questions?
Yes, sure.
Then we have Sergi ask, is it possible to see the script generated behind and edit? I think actually he says that you already answered, because yes, it is. You can always see the script here in the advanced view in Genta. Then we have a question from Ozzy Keel. What are the high-level differences between GentaScript versus .NET?
Yeah. So we've tried to make the syntax similar to .NET and some other high-level languages. So there's some similarities. So learning it should not be difficult. We've got many people that are using the product and that did reviews, professionals like RPA consultants that have many years of development experience to help us that consulted with us to give us suggestions on syntax and things like that. So hopefully it's user friendly for for developers where, we're not recreating things. We're trying to make use of it, but also we're targeting business users as well so that the syntax is not too programmatic looking and intimidating.
Great, Chris. Thank you. And Ashikil, I hope that answered you. Ashikil got one more question. He says, what are the priced models? Who are our current customers?
Yep. So right now we've got a community edition that gives you some free credits to try the tool. It's each credit. So when it detects a screen, that's considered a credit. Okay. And there's some credits for the chat, depending how long the prompt is. There's some credits when you're doing detection. So that's how the credits kind of work. We call them work units, and it's down here. And one work unit is about a penny, or less than a penny. Depends on which tier you purchase. If you're on Community Edition, it's free, but if you don't get a paid license, and Community Edition, you can buy 2 pennies for each work unit. So you can get 1,000 work units for $20. Okay, so that should help with most automations if you don't use it too much, maybe once a week or something like that, that you need to automate something. The professional version has more work units available, and that's 1 penny per work unit. And the enterprise is another level higher. That also has unlimited seats, and has like like 1 million work units. Yeah, and it's also on our website.
Great. Thank you for that great question. And Jagira says he's a Power Automate developer. Is it good to learn this Genta software? Jagira, I think you can go try it yourself. I will definitely recommend it. It was really fun. I did a lot of cool stuff. Here, Chris got the link to the community version of Genta, so you can just go try it there. I definitely recommend it. Ezekiel also says super cool stuff. Great job, Chris. Chris, there was also a lot of comments about you're doing a great job and Genta, so cool. I skipped
Oh,
those,
thanks.
but sorry for that. It's not only
Thanks.
questions at all, Chris. We have Search says other languages than English supported.
Right now, we've only tested it with English, but we have researched it, and it looks like it should support other languages. So if you have a prompt in, let's say, Spanish, it should be able to translate it, but we have not tested that yet, so I can't answer that. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, but we will, be looking to try to make it so that even if in other languages, you'll be able to do a prompt, and it should understand how to write the automation.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Sergi, I hope that was answer enough for you. Then Raphael asks, is there any safety tool to prevent business users execute destructive commands?
Right. Yeah. So we don't have anything that will, prevent a user from saying delete, or, go through every folder and delete all, things like that, or, you know, uh, open Outlook and create an Excel file with 1,000 email, I don't know, addresses or something, and then email each person or something like that. It doesn't have anything that, to control that. We're looking to see how we can monitor or, somehow safeguard, but it's something that comes with, the responsibility of, on our side as well as the client, to understand their users. And deleting folders you can also do yourself, but we understand that with an automation tool, and with it being quite easy like this with a prompt, you could create an automation to go and post malicious things to websites and that. So we will be having something in our agreement that our lawyers, our attorneys, looking at right now, which is to, if any malicious activity is found with any customers misusing the tool, that we will be revoking their license. Okay, even the community edition requires a license, So there we do have a way to revoke if we find people are not using it responsibly, to cause harm or things like that, or posting malicious things.
Great, thank you, Chris. And Chris, it's not only me who thinks this is really cool.
Yeah.
Jagida says nice presentation. Chris, thanks for the coordination. Anders, thanks a lot, Jagida. I really hope you all enjoyed this nice demo and presentation. Oshikil got another great question. Can Genta overcome certain multi-factor authentication problems or prompts?
Yeah. So when you have multi-factor authentication, it could be via email, and it may be text messages. I believe they might be moving away from text messages to require, authenticator prompts on your phone. So it will be able to handle if there's like a UAC prompt. If you're in a web browser or doing something where it's a Windows prompt, as long as it can be seen on the screen, it can be handled. If it's by email, it can also be handled. But if it's if it's only accessible on your phone, let's say, like the Microsoft Authenticator or an application like that, then the tool won't be able to authenticate if it's like something on your phone. Not yet anyways, because right now we don't have a phone app version or anything like that. But right now, if you have multi-factor authentication, then you would need to set it to send you an email. Then we've tested this as well. So we would send it to send an email, and then you can monitor or check the email. There's a command to check your email, uh, and then you can also copy the authentication code. There's a way to do it. So the short answer is yes. Yeah.
Chris, and Ozzy says great answer, so thanks for that. Then we have Search says how to manage orchestrate bots.
Right. So I didn't cover that in this session, but I showed that there's a desktop version and a worker. The worker can have multiple desktops connected to it. Okay, and you can also have multiple workers. And we've introduced the concept something called drones, um, where you can dispatch work to drones, which essentially they're like workers. You can convert a worker to a drone. We don't have a cloud-based orchestrator. Okay, we've made it so that it can be on-prem, so that customers can host and manage the workers themselves. But we don't have like a cloud web UI where you can manage it. Okay, it may be something that we have in the future, but right now we've made it so that we've got a fully on-prem version. The workers will be able to show the work queue um, of all the desktop requests, right? So there is a way to monitor and view all the requests that are being made by each user or employee and see the logs. So there's like if it's just one, it's quite straightforward. Um, let's see if I can show it here. But here, like there's one entry here, but you'll have a list here. You'll see who made the request and things like that. But not it depends on what you're looking for. You can always set up a call with us so we can go over in more detail. Um, but there is a way to centralize, let's say, the workflows and the logs and things like that.
Great, Chris. Thanks for the answer, Sergi. I hope that was great for you. Then we have Balram Singh says that is Genta support automating cloud-based files?
Not currently, no. So if there's it can interact with the UI, right? So if you have it in SharePoint or Google, you can manipulate, you can download the files and things like that. But we don't have a way to, let's say, add a new item through the API, like for Google Sheets or things like that. So there's no integration to, let's say, to retrieve from Google Sheets that's in the cloud, or a SharePoint file through an API. That's what we'll be adding next, which is API support for that type of thing, plus with like Microsoft Dynamics and SAP, so that we can because we understand that it's in many cases it's faster, more reliable to be able to connect directly. So we'll be adding more commands so that you can simply prompt to check for this invoice if it exists in SAP or in Dynamics, and it can use an API to actually check for you instead of creating a script that actually has to log in and all that stuff.
Great, Chris. Thank you. And Sergi says, in case the request generate a failed script, how to handle the error?
Yep. So if I type the prompt in here, let's say that had a problem, it will fail. You'll get a pop-up that it had an error, and you can click on View Logs. So, so I'd go Advanced Mode, and then you would be able to see the script here. And then let's say for some reason it had, I don't know, there was some issue with the command, and I had some syntax that was invalid. We have something called errors here. It's an errors panel, which will give us a hint. It's in beta also, but it's mostly working. So it'll be similar to Visual Studio, where you've got and other IDEs where you have some sort of syntax checking. So it says on line 5 there's a unknown keyword, and then so I can delete that. But you'd have to go into the editor and review here how to fix it, and then there's commands here. So let's say something is not working, like you're trying to extract from a PDF or a table, right? So if you type table, you'll have a bunch of different commands and stuff here that you can, so like get all data table information. So you can look for the command in here. And then you can drag and drop, and it'll give you the suggestion here if you type as well. So create. Yeah, so here it gives you some suggestions and description. You hit tab, and then it'll fill in a sample for you. So that'll help with fixing the errors.
Great, Chris. Thank you.
Okay.
And yeah, thank you, Serge, for the great question. And Ozzy says, can Genta integrate with other enterprise RPA tools?
No, it doesn't have any integration with any other RPA tools. So if you're trying to use the computer vision part, this was a question someone else brought up at one time. We don't have any way to plug into any other applications. It might be something that, if we have a lot of requests for that, we will try to build something out to help users who have that need. But right now we're just trying to get it out of beta, and which should be once we hit version 2, maybe in a month. It's been extended, but yeah, hopefully in a month we're getting closer. But yeah.
Thank you, Ozzy, for the question, and Chris for the answer, of course. We have a lot of questions, Chris. It's a highly popular piece of software you have with you today. Then another Chris says, if I'm accessing a software program on a virtual machine through Citrix from my desktop, could this be used without having to be installed on the virtual machine directly?
Yes. So we don't need to use an agent on the Citrix machine because it uses computer vision. However, you will need to, so if the remote desktop was, I'm using a remote desktop here. So if the Citrix session, if it's a thin app, then there shouldn't be any issues. But if it's like a remote session, like a VM even, then you have to be able to see the control. They can be small, it'll still work, but if it's like this, you need to make it bigger. Just like a browser window, you'll need to be able to see the controls. And then behind the scenes, I can show you what it has done. So with Citrix, it would do the same thing. So since it doesn't need selectors, you can go to your workflow, your Genta worker, okay, that does the work, trace logs. And then like for Google, let's open this one. So this is what it'll do. So in your Citrix window, it's using computer vision to find like the select boxes, for example. Right, and then there's a 3-dot menu it picked up. I missed this one, but this is also helpful for troubleshooting. It's about 95% accurate though with the controls. And with Citrix applications, you will not be able to use like this capture. This is using selectors, okay, as a backup if you ever need to, for clicking on images that we don't have it trained on. Yeah, so that's how it's working. So it should work with
Great, Chris.
Citrix. Yeah.
So a great way to automate through Citrix. Then Lucas says, is it possible to work with SAP or a similar application?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of testing with SAP and other platforms like Dynamics and Salesforce, and it works well. So, they're very standard text boxes and things like that. We find that, with Dynamics or some interfaces though, if it doesn't have a text box, there are some cases where, you might have a user interface, but the text boxes are blank, just like RPA challenge. So if I go to, just let me show you an example. Because we've trained it on text boxes and what controls look like. So if your button, well, buttons are easy because we can just tell it to click on the label, like the word submit, and it can find it. There's a way to also, if there's more than one submit button, but for text boxes like this, it has harder time. It can detect it, but it has a harder time. So to fix that in Dynamics, and in the case of SAP, sometimes you go to detection settings, web browser, and then if it has no border, you can put it in here. We put a couple in here already, but you might have to put your SAP URL in here or the domain. But it does work well with SAP. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for the answer. Thanks for the questions, Lucas. I hope that answered you. Then Ezekiel says, what is the most complex process/project that Genta has been able to create without human intervention post-prompt?
Yep, good question. So we, the product is in beta. The most complex has been only use cases. I mean, test cases that we've created and that have been provided from consultants to us. The product still is in pre-sales, so it's just released. We had some changes to the product and integrated with GentaScript. So we don't have a lot of examples from customers, but we do have some from customers that have been testing it. I can show one that is a bit more complicated. It's in the workflow examples. I wouldn't say it's very complicated, but I can show you, some example of some scripts that you could write to, so this one is going to validate doctors' licenses, and basically this is what it does. So it'll enter a number in here. If the doctor is valid, then the automation needs to go in here and then read from the data tables, including embedded ones, and retrieve the status, and also the value in here. And then these are embedded in here. And then save these to Excel. If the doctor is not valid, it also needs to detect this error and then save that it's not valid. There's another exception where it's, so this one is not found. So, it's not a very complex example, but there are some different scenarios and if else conditions type of thing, and looping. This one doesn't involve approval by people or things like that, like man in the loop type of thing. But if anyone has any automations that they're trying to build, for the first year of your license, Cognito will help you build your automation for no charge. So we're trying to get feedback and things like that. You just have to create a ticket with support@cognito.com. And again, support@cognito.com, and then we'll be in touch to help you create the automation, even if you're using the community edition. And really, is to get feedback and improve the product and make it as useful as we can. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Ezekiel, for another great question. I hope that answers you. Chris, we will have a little bit shorter answers. Is that okay with you? I like your long answers because I'm learning so much from you, but
Yeah.
a little bit of shorter answers is now,
Yes.
if
Sure.
that's okay with you.
Yes.
Ezekiel asks, is there anything in the works to create prompts based on workflow diagrams, or maybe a train me option that can follow the click level process?
Sorry. Could you repeat that?
Could we generate scripts based from workflow diagrams, based on workflow diagrams? So
Oh, I see.
could I upload a visual workflow diagram and then have Genta created?
No, I can't do that yet. I can't do that. I'm not sure if we'll have that feature, but no, I
No.
can't. That would
Cool.
be pretty cool, though. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. And there's a lot of impressive capture scores. Lucas says awesome. Chris says nice, thank you. There's a lot of other nice things. There's one here from Balram Singh. He says, what about garbage management? There seems to be a lot of depending image files getting generated. Will they be automatically removed?
Yeah, there's settings. So if you want to, you can turn it off completely where it won't create those files. But there is a setting to keep the logs and the trace logs. So that's the location. You can put it on like a D drive, set that to 1 or 0, right? Or 1, and you can turn off logging. So there is a way to turn it off. Yeah.
Great. Great, Chris. Thank you. Then Ezekiel have a great suggestion in the QA department. He says, just a thought, I could see this being used wide scale to ensure that all objects are on screen as expected for troublesome apps and web portals as a pretest. So some sort of a QA. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so to use it in QA for testing, you mean? Like
Yeah, I think so.
for
That to
apps that
test
are...
that all objects are there on screen and.
Oh, yeah. Actually, we have someone on our team has a background with QA teams, and yeah, it could be used to basically automate testing and reading results from pages, the same way people would use Selenium to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope that was what you meant, Ezekiel. Otherwise, prompt us in the chat. Sergio says thanks, and Ezekiel says beautiful. Ezekiel says, what industries do you have currently testing the product?
We've tested it in, I would say with different application domains like IT, and the applications would be, Jira, Active Directory, so we can automatically create tickets in Jira, for example, if needed, from an email or from Excel, if and reading from Active Directory as well as needed. So like if someone's got vacation days. And then there's also finance, of course, so PDF extraction, invoices, and inputting into systems like SAP or Dynamics. We've touched on doing some things with marketing, like creating material for marketing. Like you can create things, like let's say a blog, but with ChatGPT, but we can create, 5 or 10 blogs in Excel, for example.
Thank you. That was the last question of the session, Chris. We could have kept on this for 2-3 hours, I'm sure, watching you build in this cool Genta Automation tool. Again, you can download Genta Automation. The link is here in the chat. There's a free version. There's a lot of people saying that this is an awesome application, Chris, and
Oh, thanks so much.
even more than I have told you here. So maybe you can read the comments after the session. To
Oh,
all you
sure, yeah.
viewers out there, participants in the chat, thanks a lot for the great interaction here in the chat. Really nice to see so many active people. This really helps the stream a lot. Chris, thanks for coming.
Yep. Thanks again, Anders. Thanks, everyone.
And if you have any questions to this, or if you're watching this later on, just post a question here in the video comments. Then Chris will come by, or I will prompt Chris, and then Chris will have an answer, or maybe his colleague will. And then Ezekiel says, thank again, Chris and Jensen. We will come back with more Genta. So see you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you.